name's Bill Dolan. I grew up in North Andover. I grew up on Ashland Street, which is down behind Sutton Street, between the tracks and the river. And went to St. Michael's Grammar School, went to North Andover High School, went in the service right out of high school, did a tour in Vietnam, extended in Vietnam, did another half tour, and extended again, but then they had the troop withdrawal, so I came back. I worked in the Stevens Mill, which is where Mill Pond Condominium is, before I went in the service, and I worked in Davis and Furber when I got out of the service. I went to Northern Essex, and originally got a degree in, associate's degree in fine arts, and then went on a track to become a firefighter. Became a firefighter in 1982. I became the fire chief, and I was fire chief until 2007. So saw all the changes in the town. In the 80s, they put in over 100 new streets in the town, and plus industrial subdivisions like behind the Willows and some other places. And they upgraded some of the schools. We have Merrimack College and Brooks School, some renovations to the airport. So it was an interesting time. But in all, I think it's really the people that made, makes you fall in love with North Andover. I was thinking as I come down here what I talk about. And from the time I was small, I used to walk to school at St. Michael's from the first grade. I didn't go to kindergarten, first grade. And, at the corner, there would be Police Officer Paul LaFawn, used to be on Sutton and Main Street, help you walk across. There were some other people there too, but I don't remember their names. And then you walked up and there was Cashman's Garage right on the corner where the 7-Eleven is now, or the quick convenience store. I don't know if it's 7-Eleven, but then Cross Coal Company across the street. On the other side from Cashman's was Freddie Popolow's. It was actually a 3-story building. It's a vacant lot now where Trombley stores their cars. And just up from that is there's a small building. It's been several different uses. Was Welch's Plumbing. Across the street from that was Karen's Funeral Parlor, which was the only other funeral parlor in town. And then the Spa Bar, which was actually located where Dunkin' Donuts, not Dunkin' Donuts, the Honey Dip Donut, whatever the donut shop is on Main Street, was there. Across the street where the bar room is now, it was a house, and there was where the parking lot for the house was actually a grassed-in field. And then go up a little further was Johnny Dolan's Garage, and across the street from that was the ever-popular Byron's 5 and 10. Then Full's Bakery. Oh yeah, I used to go into Byron's all the time. And it's amazing for the size when you go in there now. It's the candy shop, the old candy shop. I think there was like 3 aisles of different merchandise, and in the back, the upper part was some other section they had in there. I used to go in there all the time. When even one one section near the window was all small kids toys. In the late 50s, early 60s, there was a lot of like, small airplane type toys, cheap type toys, and different things. Used to go in there a lot. And Crane's Hardware, which is Jimmy Crane, who was a firefighter, his father and his uncle ran that store. And at Christmas time, they always had something in the window, a display or something. Then after that was Simon Iacano had a barber shop where Eyes on Main Street is now. He was there for years. He was my reference when I went in the service. I had a reference, and he was the only person. I was only 17 when I went in, so I needed a reference for the unit I was in. He was my reference. And then you had the gas station after that, Phelan's Market, and the Bradstreet School where we are today. Then going up the street where CVS and all that was actually houses along Main Street. There was a stone wall with, I always remember they had this stone wall with these stones that stood up so they couldn't sit on the wall, but would always try to walk across them when I was a kid. And then they had the first market come in there back in the 60s, and they moved some of those houses. One moved to Artron Ave, and different places. They actually moved the whole house. One of them, they took it down over First Street, and it was a big deal. And then you had Finneran's Drug Store and the post office, and on the other side was Midtown TV. Mr. Boucher owned Midtown TV, and that insurance agency, and it was a lot different, small town. But the thing was, with all the people that were in there, when you walk by, somebody would always say hi to you, how you doing? They all knew who you were. And it's funny when you talk. I was with someplace last night, and you start talking, and I don't know if it's because you get older or what, but this person's related to that person's related to that person. How'd you know that person? So I think there was a lot more of that back then, and it really was a smaller community up until the 80s, because I would come back from the service in '72, and my uncle Jack lived out. He worked in the Stevens Mill, which is up where Mill Pond was, and went out to see him. He was where the old standby to recognize where the corner was the Killer Bees sign on the corner of Boxford and Salem Street. He lived out on Salem Street. Well, right after that was Norman Flanders' house, and the road ended there up until like 1971. It was just dirt road after that. And I went out to see him, and the road was all tarred, and there was houses out there. He was probably about, 2 miles out after that. Danny Corners was on one side, he was on the other side. Between there and what's now Sharpness Pond Road, which wasn't there until the 70s, there was probably only 5 or 6 houses. And so it really had changed a lot after that, and it continues to change. Things that were even back in the 70s are gone. Like when you think about the Fellowship Bible Church up by intersection of the 125 bypass and 114, that was taken, and Merrimack College put it on their campus, and I had the CVS in Chestnut Green. So, and then a whole strip of 114, which back in the 50s and 60s, it was actually a cement road, not a tar road, and I think they tarred over that. That's why it's got such a good base. But it's just my favorite saying is the only thing that's constant is change, which I said to you when I came in here. And that's true. It's change, and change is good. There used to be a lot of hunters. I grew up hunting, and my father used to work in Sutton's Mill, which is where 200 Sutton Street is now. There was actually a 3rd floor, and that they took it off when they renovated it. And he'd get out of the work about 3:30 in the fall. We'd go the North Andover Fish and Game, which was very active. They used to stock pheasants in town. As pheasants aren't native, they have to be stocked. And we'd walk down the railroad tracks down beyond the mill, and there was no sewage treatment plant. So we'd walk from where I was on Ashland Street down the tracks, and we'd start hunting behind where Charles Street is now. There was a big garden in there, and we'd go all the way to Haverhill, and then we'd walk back again. Hunt pheasants in there. And so it was a lot different in out country. There was a lot of the places. My uncle's house was originally a hunting camp. It was owned by his mother-in-law. And if you went farther out where Peter Breen is out on Boxford Street, that was in that area was the Globe. The Globe newspaper actually owned a place out there. They used to bring hunters out there back in the 40s, 50s, I guess. And was really nobody out there, nobody at all.
So is there a defined area? What's
yeah, when they said out country then, they really meant out country. There was really nothing out there. And even where the J&M store is now on Salem Street, there was a gas station there, but it had already closed up in the 50s. My uncle moved from Ashland Street to Salem Street in 1957, and it was closed then. And I can remember going with my father and hit that stretch of dirt road. It seemed like we were going forever because I was a kid, but there was really not much out there. Pretty dark. There was no street lights, nothing out there. It was pretty dark, and but there were a lot of people you'd meet that hunters and stuff. The old police chief Sullivan, he was a hunter. A lot of guys. Jack Sullivan, his brother was a lieutenant on the fire department. They were all hunters. A lot of people hunters. Different time, different philosophy. Nothing wrong with the change. It's getting more crowded now. There's less room, but it was a good time. I can't complain about any of it. But I was thinking, when I was a kid, they used to put a Christmas tree right across the street here on the corner, right by fire, right in the street, and decorate it every year. But that was because it was not so busy then. Now it's a lot more busy than it is. But, and in June, Bill Finneran, who owned Finneran's Drugstore, where Dunkin' Donuts is on Main Street, and the other merchants, Val's and all the merchants on Main Street would get together and they'd run, it was not Old Home Days, but it was something similar to that. And they'd run a bazaar days. And they'd run a big bazaar on the, everybody'd have sales and they had things out on the sidewalk and prizes and different things. They raffle off a car, but it was not a new car. It was somebody's old car they raffle off. But it was good. It was a good time. And it really brought people together. I think you get some of that now today. I haven't really gone to the farmers market as much, but I'm sure you get some of that with that same feeling and some of the things that they run. The festival committee runs a lot of things. I was on that for a long time. And when it first started, I worked with Dana Fisher, who was the deputy chief from the fire department when we had the Board of Fire Engineers, and him, myself, we used to take the old ladder truck and we'd put up the wreaths every year. And me and him putting up the wreaths on a Sunday morning, and then we'd take them down when the thing was over. And then the 350th, Rosemary Smedaley got the idea for the banners, and I was putting up the banners, and the fire department finally got a bucket truck, and I was putting them up, and I put up one banner, and she goes, "It's wrong, it's upside down." And I said, "No, it's right." And she, "No, it's upside down." Well, the banners were two-sided, and when they put it together, that one banner they had flipped it. So her side was upside down, my side was all right. But we got it all squared away. But it was, a lot of things like that. I spent a lot of time with that, doing that. Go out and put the banners up and put them down. There's I think there was 50-something banners, so I'd start early on a Sunday morning, get done Sunday afternoon by myself. Sometimes I take my son, he was young, come with me just for the ride. Like to ride up in the bucket truck down. So, there were other events. I think we did good with I was on the board of directors for the Stevens Estate for a while, and that property I think is a very good property for people. It's heavily used. I think people walk and it connected the Weir Hill property from the trustees to the Stevens property. A lot of walking trails that weren't there before. I was walking recently, a lot of trails there, but it's good. People get out and use it. And that's what it's there for. And I see people using the lake more often, which is good, because I think if you don't use something, it doesn't get appreciated. So I know that they have kayak racks in different places, and people are out there using it. So it's a great thing. They used to have a sign on the lake that said North Andover's greatest resource, and they took it down some years ago. But it's our greatest resource, water-wise and recreational-wise. Well, I was a wrestler in high school. I started off as a basketball player, but I wasn't very good at it. So I did my freshman year as a basketball player, and then Tug Crozier talked to me my freshman year, and I said, well, I made a commitment to the basketball team for the first year, and he said, well, I appreciate that. So then I wrestled the second year and through my senior year, and I wound up going to the States in my senior year, lost the state championship by 1 point. And he was very instrumental in, I think, in developing me as a person. He was a good coach, and I think he cared a lot about, he coached track too, and I was on the track team. And I wasn't a runner. I was a shot put and discus man. They did kind of an ugly thought thinking of me running, but he always had concern for the people, over what the win or loss was. And he up until, he was in his 80s or so, and he died. I would see him, because I coached wrestling for a while, and youth wrestling. And I'd see him, and he was still very involved with a lot of that. A very inspirational guy. A lot of the wrestlers in North Andover are very closely tied to Howard Crozier. So naturally we have more population than we had back then. And I was happy to see that finally, for years I recommended that the town, take over the fire station and become one building, because we had pieces of the town hall in all different places, which I think was confusing to people, and we needed to get off Main Street. It was great back in the days when, there was really an out country, but not when the town started to spread out and the population was more spread out evenly, my opinion was that it was not good for us to be on this end of town. We had so much of the other end of town to cover. So, and I think it's worked out well. I think town hall's come out very well. They did a good job with it. You know, and now people go to one place to do everything they have to do, and I think it's a lot better. I think the fire station, that was the building committee for that. I think it came out well. Not everybody gets what they want, but it's in a good location. Chief Stanley and I had both talked at one time about doing a combined station up in that same area, and we just couldn't come to agreement with the property owner across the street to build that facility, which would have been a great thing. You know, the police and fire would have been in one place, but it just didn't happen. So, I think there's a lot of changes. When I went to high school, I went to what is now the middle school, and you know, the new part of the high school was the addition they put on in back because my sister went there. She was a little older than me. The high school only consisted of the front L, if you want, from the gymnasium all the way around to 125, and then they added what they called the new section on the back later on. That was there when I went, and I can't remember how many kids are in my class, but there's nowhere near what they graduate today. In fact, it rained on our graduation in 1969, and in the courtyard, we were supposed to have our graduation in the courtyard of the middle school, so think about that, how small that is. And it rained so hard, we had the graduation in the middle school gymnasium with all our parents and relatives and everything in there as well. So we just had our 50th a couple of years ago. So, you know, time passes quick, but I think the biggest change is the amount of population that you have in town. There's no doubt about it, you know, and the stress that puts on town services in the town, and some of that closeness that you had before, you don't have anymore because, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they're building, you know, the apartment complexes and that. I don't think you get that close relationship you had when it was all mostly single-family homes. When I came on, it was lieutenants like Don Fountain, Jimmy Fitzgerald, Jack Sullivan, Kenny Long, a lot of the old lieutenants, Jim Tamanini. Don Fountain in particular, he was World War II. Jimmy Fitzgerald was a Korean vet. So they were older, you know, and it was very strict, you know, that certain things you had to do every day. You get up at a certain time, make sure you had everything swept and cleaned, and the truck went out, and it came back in, you washed it, and you chamoised it and put it away. If the truck went out again, you came back in, you washed it, you chamoised it. So everything was done in a certain order. And so, you know, over time we changed some of that. I became chief in 82. I think it was 83 or 84, we started sending our first guys to the Mass Fire Academy to get trained because we had no really formal training. It was in-house training. And things changed in the 80s. There was a lot more plastics in the fires. Prior to that, it was a lot more wood in the fires, a lot more plastics in cars, a lot more dangerous to, you know, firefighters, their own safety, more concerned about the firefighters' safety. So, you know, over time, we got everybody now is a graduate of the firefighter recruit program. There's one in Stowe, there's one in Springfield for the Western Mass. And it's good because they all learn the same way, you know, and they all learn about safety. And we changed from, when I first go on, we had, you know, standard shift fire trucks, and then now I went to automatics, and that was kind of a heresy to some people, but I said, you know, a lot of these kids don't know how to drive a standard, never seen a standard in their life. They have to, there's no sense doing it, you know, so. But, and we made some other changes, and, you know, you move along. John McGuire was one of the Board of Fire Engineers. Brian Kingsley, who was worked at the choir at the church, he was on for a while. He was a dispatcher for us for a while. We had our own dispatchers. Actually, we were the first ones to have a computer back in, I went to the National Fire Academy in '84 for a program called Computers in the Fire Service. And I came back and I learned how to use a Lotus spreadsheet. So I did the budget, one page, weekly salary and everything to submit to the town on one page Lotus spreadsheet. And at the time, everything was hand ledger. You had to write everything in, the payment and expenses, and that's how the town worked. I submitted it and they wouldn't take it. They said, you can't trust those computers. So I had to go back and take everything that was on the Lotus spreadsheet and put it on a piece of paper and hand it in that way. So that's the way I did it for a while. But, you know, we caught up, we've surpassed all that, and I think it was good. And we did a lot of advancements between us and the police, and, you know, I think the major thing is any of that is that there is a strong ethic in the fire department and the police department and even the public works, you know, the works that they're here to serve the people, and they do an outstanding job, and some people don't realize, and sometimes I never even realized, because I would hear the stories afterwards of some of the things the guys and women did to help people in the town with, you know, that went above and beyond what they had to do. So, you know, I think there's a lot of credit goes, because it's easy to throw stones sometimes, you know, but they do a good job, all of them, you know. And I used to say the public works is a public safety department, because in the middle of winter in the snow, if we don't have the plows to plow the streets, we're not going anywhere. So we all got to work together. A few years ago, I was asked to do a talk at the Veterans Day, 50th anniversary of Vietnam veterans, and there was a group on the stage, which is some very distinguished Vietnam veterans, Bobby Turner particularly, Joe Smith, some other people, and I forget some of them today. But, you know, one of the things I did that was I agreed to it was because the town's been so good to me over the years, you know, it really has. From the time I was small, till the time I was chief, until the time I retired. Good people all around. Dave Rand, the retired police officer, always used to say that, and he still says it today. He's 93, I think. And we have good people in the town, you know, and I think they're willing to put forth their talents to help other people. And that's what makes a great town, and it's always been that way. So I'm lucky to have been a part of it, to work with some great people.